I've got my down system here, right? Now this is exactly where we left it when we did that tar incident at the beginning. Now, the tool I wanted to show you, and we've already mentioned this, is ReaR, relax and recover, right? What ReaR does is it actually makes a bootable ISO that you can restore a machine from, and it restores essentially like a machine image. Now you have to make sure there's certain things that are the same. Like ReaR will actually restore the partition table of the machine and restore the data to those partitions. So if you boot it up on a new machine that doesn't have the same disk geometry, there are ways to account for it, but ReaR isn't going to be able to just automatically restore because it doesn't know how you want those disks laid out. I've already got this machine set up so that the boot order, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen, but the boot order here is configured so that it will boot from an ISO file if I attach one. At the moment, I don't have one attached, but we're going to attach one. And I've already got that created so that you guys don't have to watch me make one and copy it around. So it's in var libvirt ISOs, and it's called ReaR ITT 137-0 because that's the name of the server that I ran ReaR on. And I'll show you how ReaR gets configured once we get the machine back up and running. All right, so we've attached the disk. We're just going to reboot the machine. So I think I'll have to do a force restart on this thing because it's in a weird state. We're going to expand the console so you can see better. All right, so now it gives us this handy boot menu, and you can see it by default. It says boot the first local disk because that's probably what you're going to do if you've accidentally left this DVD or this ISO attached to a machine. But in our case, we already know the machine's not going to boot, so we're going to do an automatic recover. Now, this first option, recover, will bring you to a recovery prompt. So if you know that there's going to be issues with how you recover and you don't want to just automatically overwrite the machine, you'd want to do that. And then there's commands you can do that'll be a little more advanced. But we're just going to do an automatic recover because we know this whole machine is just completely borked. So we hit enter, and it's going to bring us to a confirmation prompt once it finishes booting. Now, what this is doing is it's bringing us into a very bare bones booted environment that has networking because it has to be able to get my backup from the place that I stored the backup at. That's not actually included on the ISO file. So we're going to show you that in a second. Okay, so now it's asking me, are you sure you want to do this? Do you want to proceed with the recover? We're going to tell it yes. Hit enter. And it's just going to go ahead and do it. Now, this does a pretty verbose output here. So we'll kind of walk through what's going on. You see right there, it's creating file systems. You can also see that it checked, let's see, somewhere up here that the disk was the same so that it knew the disk geometry was the same size. And now it's actually restoring that backup tar gzip, which, believe it or not, this does use tar gzip. So that's my example from earlier about times when that preserving absolute paths is important, because that's exactly what it's doing here. Ironic that tar gzip broke the machine in the first place, and now tar gzip is fixing it. All right, it actually goes through and builds a new grub config, because obviously you wouldn't necessarily have that. It's making sure that things like UUIDs and whatnot are correct, and then rebuilding the grub config. Now, the UUID should be the same because this is an identical system, but if you're restoring to a similar but not identical system, those may be different, so it has to account for that. All right, and then it asks us, what do you want to do next? We can go into a shell, or we can view the log file, or we can just reboot. Now, I trust that it did its thing because I was watching the log output. So we're going to hit number 3 and let it reboot. And I should have disconnected that ISO file. All right, so this is exactly why it boots from the local disk instead of right into the recovery mode. Otherwise, it would go into this loop of recovering over and over again. So we're going to say boot from the first local disk, and then it's going to bring us to the grub menu, which is already better than we were before. And while it's doing this, I'm not going to disconnect it. I was going to hop over and disconnect that that ISO file, but I want you to see what's going on here. It boots the system, and then it hangs here, and then it reboots again. And the best I can figure what it's doing here is an SE Linux auto relabel, because that feels exactly like what it's doing.
Even that is exactly what it is doing.
Yeah, that's got to be what it's doing. So we're going to let it boot now, and it should come back up with my system. Now, I made this ISO literally half an hour before we went live, so I know it's got the right data in there. But I'm going to show you in the extension of this demo here how it gets configured and where it gets its configs and whatnot from. ReaR it's just a package called ReaR. You can just DNF install ReaR, and what you get is the tooling that makes ReaR work. And then inside of Etsy ReaR, it builds some basics, I guess there's a certificate involved that gets thrown in there, but the local.conf, and there's also, I forget if it's the os.conf or if there was a third file. One of them is meant for like general defaults that you're deploying to all your machines. And then if you have specific things that this machine is supposed to back up, there's a second config file. And I think it mentions it inside of the ReaR local.conf. Yeah, it mentions it here. Local.conf. I thought it told me which one it went to. Oh, intended for the user's manual configuration, relax and recovery. Anyway, there's separate config files for site configs and for specific configs for this machine. Now, what I've thrown in here is I told it what I want it to output to, what kind of backup I want it to create. So this is telling it when you do your, I don't know how readable that is on stream, but this is telling it that when you do your backup, make an ISO file so that I have a specific ISO file that I can boot to restore this machine from, right? So when it makes the backup, it'll make the archive file and this bootable ISO that'll tell this machine how to restore that archive file. Now, output URL. You might think that's a little misleading. Like you might think, why would I point it to a URL? But notice what I have in here. It points to an NFS share. And there's also this backup equals netfs. That's the backup sort of storage backend. And there's about a dozen different storage backends that ReaR supports. One of those is Bacula, which is another tool that's included with RHEL. You can install that right from the repositories. But basically, Bacula is a lot more complicated to get set up than just NFS, which is why I used NFS. It's a larger, more complicated, more sophisticated backup system. But there's also things like you can point this to Tivoli Storage Manager, which is something that I had used in a previous job, which is a pretty nice backup system. There's a bunch of, Scott had mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of different vendors that we work with that are partners of Red Hat that offer different backup solutions. You can also look there to see if there's a different storage backend that also works with ReaR if you want to use ReaR. All right, let's see. Output URL, backup URL. This basically tells it, these are two different directives for where things are supposed to be stored to. We can have some exclusions. I just went with the defaults that are in here, right? There's some built-in backup exclusions. And then there's also, it added /media, var temp, and var crash, because those are things that are going to either be useless or big, right? Big that maybe you don't want, like var crash. That's going to have crash dumps and whatnot. Sometimes those get enormous, and maybe you don't want to include those in your backups. And then you can tell it, you can also add in options that'll make it do incrementals instead of full backups. I decided to do full backups because I didn't want to add some complexity with incrementals to this particular demo, but note that does exist, and that's a thing you can do. And of course, do you want to keep the old copy of the backup is that last thing. I left it at the default, which I think tells it not to keep the old copy. You can turn that on if you want 2 revisions. And so if you're not using incrementals, you have a second copy, like the last full backup is still there.
So Nate, one note on incrementals, since you mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Incremental backups are where you run the same backup utility, but it looks at things like the last modified timestamp on files to decide whether it needs to back up a file or not. And so the ultimate result is you get less stuff in your backup because there hasn't been changes.
Right.
So you save. The flip side is you increase your restore complexity. So
right.
In order to restore, you now start with your full backup, and then you have to lay on in order all of the incrementals after that to rebuild your system back to its current state. With storage the way it is, full backups are pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Rather than relying on incrementals. But
if you're backing up a whole data center full of systems, sometimes it isn't the space you're worried about. It's how long does that take? Can it finish the backup in a, I don't know, 8-hour period overnight? And if it can't, then incrementals might be a way to work around that problem. So things you need to weigh when you're planning how to get these things done. Okay, then the other thing I want to show you was how do we actually create a backup with ReaR? You already saw how to restore a backup, but it's actually really simple. And this is something you could throw into a cron job or something. I'm going to do it with some very verbose output so you can see what's going on. If you're doing this in cron, I wouldn't bother with the verbose output because it does store a log file that you can go look at later. So if we just do ReaR and then -D and -V, turn on debug and verbose. Verbose is a hard word to say, Scott. Why do we have to use it so much in IT? verbose output and debug output. That's so that it outputs more to the screen so you can see what's going on. And then we just do mk backup. Now there's a subcommand of mk backup that's mk backup only, I think it was, that just does just a file backup. It doesn't do the ISO and everything, but I don't want to do that. I want to do the ISO because I want to be able to recover as quickly and easily as I just showed you in that demo. So you can see here exactly what it's doing. Sorry, go ahead.
A quick note on ISOs. If you actually want to make your backup on a piece of physical media, that's also going to determine the size of your backup, right? Because you can only put 8 gig on a dual layer DVD piece of media. And if your ISO formatted backup is 12 gig, you can electronically move it around. You can attach it to stuff like Nate did in his demo. That's all fine because it's the right format to be understood as an ISO, but you won't be able to take something more than 8 gig and actually press it or burn it onto on a piece of physical media.
So the cool thing about ReaR, and I don't know if there's a way to configure it so it packs the entire backup onto that ISO, it actually puts a skeleton on the ISO. The ISO is actually pretty small, but then it assumes that it can reach the network and it can reach the place where you've stored the full backup, and it can go get it and pull it down. But it doesn't all have to fit on the ISO, which is handy. Actually, while it's doing this, well, maybe not. The thing I wanted to show you was where I can actually get to the NFS share that is stored at, and you can see what that looks like. But I don't want to move away from this window, and then you miss all the exciting output.
While it's building, Billy actually mentioned in chat about infrastructure as code. And I've heard several different variations of this. Some people call it GitOps. There's a bunch of options. And maybe we'll talk about that after, because now you just finished.
Yeah, so this gives me a suggestion that I'll probably want to remove the var temp rear dot yada yada. That's the temp directory that it used to make this backup. And that's mainly just to save space, right? On the production machine. So if I'm running these things nightly, that var temp directory is going to get more and more full every time I run one of these backups, right? So you may want to, if you're scripting this, you may want to have it check for temp files called rear dot something and clean those up after they run. So just keep that in mind. Var temp is one of those, I don't think it automatically empties. Temp automatically empties, but var temp does not. So you will definitely get cruft in there.
It does automatically empty.
It does.
But instead of removing things that haven't been accessed in 10 days, var temp removes things that haven't been accessed in 30 days.
So yes, you'd have 30 days of backup sitting in there, which would probably get large. Okay, so it finished the backup, and there's not much else to show you on this particular machine. What I can do is drop down to the terminal here, which is this is on my hypervisor. I happen to have the NFS share. Oh, only if I could type my password. Oh, I wanted sudo. Hit the wrong button, then it reloaded. Sudo su dash. I'm not even sure what the root password of this machine is. I never use it. Anyway. So in here, and this is just a mount on my local NAS. You can see this .old file here. That's the last copy of the backup that it created when I made the backup, right? So I think it only keeps one extra copy. Maybe there's a way to configure that so it keeps more. I don't know. But this ITT137-0, it's the name of the server. That's the host name of the machine that I backed up. And if I look in here, you're going to see there's a README file, which kind of gives me some basics about how I would use the restoration. Really, all it tells me is, dummy, don't copy the ISO onto a DVD, burn it to a DVD, or boot from it, which is funny. That's what they've included in the README. That's all they've included in the README. But anyway, there's that backup file. Right? And this is the file that it pulls down. Here, let's do an LH on it so you can see how big it is. You can see it's 1.2 gigabytes. So that's all the amount of data that it was able to get out of, or all the data that it thought was important to get out of that machine. And that is the whole machine, right? Because you saw it. My initial demo was going to be use DD to write zeros to dev VDA. And then I restored from this. So I tested that and it worked, right? It doesn't need any data. It doesn't depend on any data being present before you get started. So anyway, let's see, was there anything else I wanted to show here? There's the ISO file, right? And you can see the ISO file is only like 400 meg. I forgot the LH again. Yeah, 446 meg, and that's that small, compact operating system that you're able to boot up, and that'll fit on a CD-ROM. Who remembers those? 650 megabytes. So you don't need a lot of infrastructure to try to boot that thing up, but it does assume that you will be able to connect that machine to the network and it'll be able to reach wherever you stored those backups to, right? But all the configuration it needs to know about is baked into this ISO file. So if you've got authentication mechanisms or whatever built into ReaR, they should end up in that ISO file so that you don't have to worry about supplying that when you're trying to restore.
Yeah,
And I think
and
that's it.
Hank mentioned in the chat that he'd never heard of ReaR before. ReaR started shipping with Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. So you'll
Yeah.
find it in RHEL 8, 9, and it is currently in 10 beta. So I expect to see it in RHEL 10 later on in the year when we release that.
Yep. Yep. So it's good stuff. I actually first heard about it not until I was at TAM. One of my customers were like, "We started using ReaR," and I'm like, "What's ReaR?" I had to go learn about it.